This is a story about personal trust clashing with legal mechanics. It's about a handwritten promise, a 7-year wait, and how it all got wiped out by a process she never even saw coming. So, just imagine for a second. Your marriage ends, but you leave with what you think is a rock-solid guarantee for a new home, a fresh start. It's written down, it's signed, all you have to do is wait. But then, years down the line, you find out that some other legal case, one you had nothing to do with, has made that promise, that piece of paper, totally worthless. Well, that is exactly what happened here. All right, so let's rewind and start at the beginning. This whole thing kicks off with a couple, Clara and Victor, a really tough decision and an agreement that was pretty unusual. So here's the timeline. Clara and Victor get married back in 2007. They do what a lot of couples do. They buy a house together, get a loan from the bank, but by 2011, it's over. And as they're getting ready to finalize their divorce, they sit down and hammer out a private deal just between them on July 25th of that year. And this right here, this is the heart of it all. The deal was super simple, and it was really built on trust. Victor promised that, within 7 years, he would buy Clara an apartment. And in return for that promise, Clara agreed to make the divorce go smoothly. No fighting over the family home. It really seemed like a fair way to close a difficult chapter in their lives. For a couple of years, everything seemed fine. Clara was patiently waiting, trusting that deal they'd made. But behind the scenes, Victor's finances were getting worse and worse, and that handwritten promise was about to run headfirst into the cold, hard reality of the law. Okay, so jump forward to 2015. This is 4 years after they made their deal. A big thing happens. Victor sells the family home, the one they used to share, and he sells it for 24,000 euros. The question is, where did that cash go? Well, here's the answer. Of that 24,000 euros, almost every single cent of it, over 23,700, went right back to the bank to pay off the mortgage. That sale left Victor with basically nothing. It was a huge red flag that his financial troubles were serious. And then, this is the moment that changes everything. On January 8th, 2018, just about 6 months shy of his 7-year deadline to buy that apartment, Victor officially declared personal bankruptcy. This one legal move set off a chain reaction that Clara had no idea was even happening. The court did not focus on emotion. It asked one key legal question. Right, so this wasn't about what was fair or about the trust between them or their history. The entire case, everything, boiled down to this one question. Does a formal bankruptcy filing have the power to just completely cancel out a private promise made years ago? And to figure that out, the court had to step away from the human side of the story and look purely at the technical, cold mechanics of bankruptcy law. And what they found was a direct clash between two totally different ways of looking at what a promise even is. Okay, so here's the conflict in the nutshell. From Clara's point of view, this wasn't just about money, it was a promise for Victor to do something, to actually go out and buy her an apartment. To her, it wasn't a debt she could even claim until those 7 years were up. But the court saw it in a completely different light. Legally speaking, the second Victor filed for bankruptcy, his future promise to buy an apartment instantly turned into a present-day debt that had a cash value. You see, the key legal rule here is that bankruptcy law doesn't wait around. It's like it hits a giant fast-forward button on all future obligations. That 7-year timeline Clara was counting on, as far as the law was concerned, the second Victor's bankruptcy started, that clock ran out. His promise to buy an apartment in the future got converted into an obligation to pay its value right now. The logic of the whole process is just unbreakable. Step 1, bankruptcy begins. Step 2, any future promises, like Victor's, are legally relabeled as immediate debts. Step 3, a very strict deadline starts for every single creditor to officially file a claim for what they're owed. And then step 4, and this is the absolute knockout blow. If you miss that deadline, your claim isn't just put on hold, it's legally, permanently, gone forever. And here's the thing, Clara was still operating on her own timeline. She believed her 7-year agreement was a totally separate thing, that her deadline was still months away, so she never got involved in the bankruptcy case. She never filed a claim. She was waiting for her deadline, not the court's. And that, right there, was the fatal mistake. So with this really strict legal logic as its guide, the case made its way through the system, and at every single stop, the answer was exactly the same. The first court to hear Clara's case didn't mince words. It said the rules of bankruptcy are not optional. That deadline to file a claim was absolute. And because she hadn't filed her claim inside that process, her right to get anything from Victor was gone. The court didn't just dismiss her case, it shut the whole thing down. Now, Clara, as you can imagine, fought this. She took her case to a higher court, an appeals court, and argued that her situation was special. Her agreement wasn't just a simple debt. It was a personal obligation for Victor to perform an act. It shouldn't be treated like a regular credit card bill. But the appeal court just didn't see it that way. It completely backed up the first court's decision. It said, look, the law is crystal clear. Even a promise to do something has a monetary value, which makes it a debt. And as a debt, it had to be filed in the bankruptcy. Her appeal was denied. And that was it. It was over. The legal system had spoken twice. That handwritten promise, the thing Clara had based her future on for 7 years, was now officially and irreversibly gone. Not because Victor kept his word, but because a legal process had made it vanish into thin air. So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? This case is just such a powerful, real-world example of the huge gap between a personal promise and a formal legal process. This story really shows us a harsh but incredibly important lesson. When a personal agreement, built on trust, runs into a rigid legal procedure, the procedure is going to win every time. That handwritten note meant the world to Clara, but in the eyes of the law, her failure to play by the rules of the bankruptcy system made it completely worthless. It's just a stark reminder that sometimes understanding how the system works is way more important than how sincere the promise was in the first place. And it leaves you wondering, in a world full of complex rules, what is a person's word really worth? One decision changed everything. Watch the next case right here and subscribe for more real stories.